Let's talk about fighting games. Fighting games are an interesting genre and one that I personally enjoy a lot. It's also a genre that people seem to think is really hard to get into. I know several people who have tried to get into fighting games, but dropped off quickly due to a variety of reasons. Difficulty with motion inputs, overchoice with a large character roster, and the feeling that the skill gap between them and some players is insurmountable are all reasons that I've heard of people dropping off of games. And while this can lead to some funny salty texts, there's two types of players in Battle for the Grid. People who play fighting games casually and like Power Rangers, and people who don't know what fun is and don't let you know it either. I love this genre, and I really want more people to experience the hype and joy that I feel while I play and watch these games. If you've ever wanted to get into the genre, then I have some really good news for you, because now is the best time to get into fighting games. Let's talk about why that is. Now, that's a bit of a weird statement. Fighting games have been around for a long time, so there's been a lot of time for people to try and get into them. So why now exactly? The genre as a whole is currently going through a bit of a transitional phase, with the biggest players in the industry having their games come to the end of their life cycles. Street Fighter V is on its final season of DLC, and Tekken 7 is getting close to 4 years old on consoles, and it's been 6 years since its initial arcade release. And with the end of the 4th season of DLC, it's possible that we'll see new entries of both of these franchises on the next generation of consoles. Plus, the Mortal Kombat developers have been really quiet recently, so they might be calling it quits early and looking to make another game on the next generation, even though MK11 is only 2 years old. What the fuck, NetherRealm? With the end of the 8th generation of consoles comes the end of these games and the start of the next generation. Meaning if you've been feeling like you missed the train and worried the amount of experience that people have means that they're going to be leagues above you, now's your chance. Though it is true that games have some form of legacy skill, especially Tekken, generally sequels of games have things that make them easier for new players or are sometimes different enough with their system mechanics that legacy skill has less of an impact. Look at the differences between Street Fighter 2 and Third Strike. In Street Fighter 2 you have very basic movement, blocking, throw teching depending on what version you want, and most characters have small, simple combos that lead to big damage and can have you blow up instantly. The most aggressive thing you can do in this game is jump at someone, and since anti-airs are so powerful in this game, that can lead to you losing the round quickly. Also, depending on the version of the game, you may have super meter or not. The game is very focused on neutral, there's very little in the way of block pressure, command grabs are pretty rare, and when you have one, you're generally focusing your entire game plan around it, and one wrong move can lead to you being dead in a matter of seconds. So, how does Street Fighter V continue the Street Fighter tradition of honest, neutral-focused fight? It doesn't. Okay, that's a bit rude. First Strike still does have a large focus on neutral and its button layout remains the exact same. The motion inputs for attacks like fireballs, dragon punches, and tattoos also stayed the same, so veteran players were able to pull these moves off easily. Street Fighter 3 also kept the supers from Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but added a new use for the meter from Second Impact onwards, being EX moves, which are just more powerful versions of special moves that use some meter. These two features have now become a staple of the Street Fighter series from 3 onwards. Street Fighter 3 also implemented dashing to the series, so you can move a greater distance than just walking while leaving yourself up for an attack. These changes alone are enough to make it different enough from Street Fighter 2 on a surface level, but would still have similar-ish gameplay. But there's another mechanic that I haven't talked about, and that's parrying. The likelihood is if you haven't played First Strike, you still know what parrying is due to this video. But if you don't know how it works, let me explain. If you press forward on your controller within a 10-frame window of an attack hitting you, your character, instead of taking damage, parries the attack, so you take no damage and you get better frame advantage, so you can hit the opponent back. This single-handedly changed the way that the game is played at a medium or high level. Now, if you were good enough, you could approach the opponent and parry anything that they throw at you and go on the offensive. Parrying also works in the air, so if your opponent is predictable with their anti-air timings, you could parry the anti-air and get a devastating combo on them. The thing that could have led to death in the previous games is now more actively encouraged, because if you have the skill, it's much easier to jump in on your opponent. This means that while these two games on the surface level are very similar, the way you go about playing them is completely different, and they're very different games to watch. What's my point in all of this? My point is that with new releases, legacy skill only gets you so far. All of your honest, neutral, focused, Blanka TOD combos are cool and everything, But that doesn't matter if this game has different universal mechanics and Blanca literally isn't in the game. New games give newbies better ground to play these games on, as while existing players are learning the changes to their characters and the new system mechanics, newbies are able to catch up in the fundamental areas. This is all well and good, but fighting games are most fun when you have somebody to play them with. I suffer through the hell that is Fighters Online Netcode because it was the main game that my friends played and they made it worth it. So if you have friends who are also interested, I recommend sticking around, as I'll be recommending games to pick up which are either cheap, free, or go on sale so often that it doesn't matter. But you may not have friends who want to play or just don't have any friends. And if that's you, then don't fret, because there's always a workaround. No matter what game it is that you're playing, there will be multiple Discord servers where you can find people looking to play at all skill levels. It could be a Discord server for just a specific game, it could be a regional Discord, a Discord for a character, or just an FGC personality Discord. If you find a looking for games channel and ask if anyone wants to play, you'll probably get some games pretty quickly. And if you don't, just try it again in a bit. I've met some really cool people playing through this method. And hell, if you don't want to do that, I'll play with you. I play with viewers on my Twitch all the time. Twitch.tv/GeckoSquirrel_live, streaming every Tuesday 6 PM to 10 PM and Friday 8 PM to 12 PM BST. And I'm not the only person who does this. If you see somebody streaming a game that you like and they have an open lobby, go play with them. You might make some friends in the process. Of course, you might look at this and go, but you're British and I'm insert non-British country here. Aren't games across this distance really laggy? And you would have been right if it wasn't for our little friend over there. For the longest time, fighting games used something called delay-based netcode. This meant that when you pressed a button, the game would wait a few frames before having the character do that action on the screen. This is fine when the frame delay is small and consistent. Most players won't notice the difference that 3 frames make. The problem is that the longer the distance between the players, the higher the ping. The higher the ping, the higher the frame delay has to be, which can lead to the game feeling slow and unresponsive. And that leads to failed combos and missing anti-airs. This wasn't good, as it meant that when you played online, you were basically locked to your specific region. And if your region doesn't have many online players, you're fucked. This was the norm for a long time though, due to most fighting game events taking place in person locally. But as things became more and more online, the demand for better netcode was needed, and thus, Rollback Netcode was made. Rollback worked by having your attack come out practically instantly on your screen, and then when the package saying that you did that attack reaches the opponent, the game figures out how many frames ago that was and puts your character in the state that they should be on their screen. This means your inputs come out when you need them to, and the game feels responsive and you can play over long distances, though sometimes you have to add a few frames of delay because if you don't it gets kinda crazy. This is finally starting to become the norm, with some older games having it retroactively put back into them. Thanks to this, we've been able to play against players across the globe, so if you know people in other continents that are down to play, you can play them without having 20 frames of delay. So, the netcode means that you can play with anyone across the world, there's a large amount of people willing to play if you look for them, and legacy skill is a myth created by top players to keep you in the rank pool. So, there's only one thing left to talk about. And that's, why would you want to play these games? Well, the answer to that is easy. Because these games are awesome. Give him another hand!
If you're not playing Tekken, what are you doing? The blood
Oh my God! Drop them, keep it simple. There it is, Goichi, your dragon.
These games are the purest, most refined embodiment of hype. In my honest opinion, there's nothing in the world more hype than a fighting game tournament. The rush of watching someone get a hard read, making a comeback from insurmountable odds, or just a good old-fashioned stomp. This genre has the most hype out of any competitive game genre I've ever seen. Recently, I commentated the Gloomageddon tournament with our good friend ProxyCon. This tournament didn't have the highest level of competition, but there were so many hype moments. In the last round, Forsyth had blitzed his way through the winner's side of the bracket, and Bizogre had beaten everyone else in the other side of the bracket to make his way to the loser's side of Grand Finals. Forsyth starts out playing as Ryu and Bizzo played Alex. After Bizzo takes the first round, Forsyth decided to switch his main, Balrog. This is a worse matchup for Balrog, as Alex is able to exploit Balrog's weaknesses pretty easily. But for Forsyth, that didn't matter. he began going on the offensive. They traded games back and forth until the score of the set was 2-2. The next match is vital. If Bizzo wins, he'll reset the bracket and be able to win the tournament. But if Forside wins, he just takes the entire tournament right there. The match starts and Forside puts on the pressure, pushing Bizzo to the edge. He takes the first round, but only barely due to Bizzo dropping a combo. The second round starts and they instantly start trading blows. Forside is able to put on the pressure, pushing Bizzo back to the other side of the screen and getting a conversion midway through. Bizzo has his back against the wall. One more hit and Forside wins the entire tournament. This is it. The last interaction. Guess for game. And what does Forside do? He just sits there.
Game. Mix up. Guess for tournament. That's it. Forside's gonna do it.
The amount of hype that this moment created reminded me why I play these games. This wasn't a high level of play, but the adaptation on display from these players was inspiring. Made me want to play this game again and hit the rank grind, so I could do a tournament run like this myself. This is my reason for wanting to play these games. But there's more reasons than this. The characters, the lore, the community, the visuals, the content, everything around these games are just as good as the games themselves, and I've not seen a better community than this one. So, maybe this sparked interest in you, and you only have one question remaining. Where do I start? With a genre as deep as this one, it can be hard to figure out exactly where to start. The obvious answer is just play the game that you think looks the best. If you like gore and ninjas, then play Mortal Kombat. If you think Korean backdashing looks cool and would love to sub to Julia, then play Tekken. If you're a degenerate like me, then just find the closest anime game and start there. But maybe you don't know where to start. Maybe you think all the games look cool, or you just don't care and want something easy. Or maybe you just want to see a bunch of different games and then choose because you have limited knowledge. Or maybe you're just watching this video because you like my content, and if that's the case, thank you. There's a lot of games to choose from, so I'll go through some of my recommendations and personal thoughts on specific games and talk about them. Fightcade is an emulator designed to play old arcade games online, mostly centered around fighting games. Some games even have ranked leaderboards, and all games have really good controller support, so you can play with whatever you want to. You do have to find your own ROMs for the games, but there are ways around that. Oh god, it's the piracy, please. No, stop, please, I just wanted to play First Strike online, I'm sorry! If there's an old arcade fighting game you want to try, look on Fightcade. It'll probably be there with really good netcode. Schoolgirls is a team-based fighting game where you can play up to 3 different characters from a small but great roster. You might look this game up and go, bro, this came out in 2012, why are you talking about it? And that's because for some reason the game has finally got its first season of DLC characters, starting with Annie. Because of this, all the previous DLC is now free and part of the base roster. This game's a 6-button fighter like Street Fighter, so every character has a lot of normals, and due to it being a team fighting game, the combos are long and insane, and if you like flashy looking combos and pulling them off, this game's for you. I really like this game, it's so cool. Guilty Gear +R is another old game, but it's recently got a boost of players due to it having Rollback Netcode added to the base game. Due to just how old this game is, there's a large amount of resources dedicated to every aspect of the game, from characters to system mechanics. This game itself is blazing fast and rewards aggression while still having deep and complex defensive mechanics. If you want an in-depth fighting game with a large community and a lot of resources, play +R. Tough Love Arena is a browser-based fighting game where... Wait, no. Oh, this doesn't feel right. Give me a second. Y'all ready to hear about Tough Love Arena at toughlovearena.com? This game is sick! 6 characters. Yeah! With costumes. Styling. All with different movesets. Awesome! It's got rollback netcode so you can play it with people across the globe. You can also play it on your phone. Kick Noodle's ass while taking a dump. They're adding new features constantly, and they just recently added ranked play. You can prove that you're better than other people now. What are you still doing here? It's free! Go play Tough Love Arena at toughlovearena.com. The FGC doesn't sit still for long. New games are constantly being made for the genre, and we have a few good ones to look forward to. One of the biggest right now being King of Fighters 15. KOF is a franchise that has been around for a very long time, but it looks like the Western appeal for the game is finally increasing, to the point where it looks like people outside the hardcore crowd are going to play it, and honestly, looking at the gameplay trailers, this looks sick. I think it'll be pretty cool. There's also Project Eld, which we don't know much about, but the testing period is happening now, so we should be getting some information at some point. There's also a chance we'll get a Marvel game from NetherRealm Studios. Oh boy. Okay, right, I have to talk about it. Strive, my guy! It's Strive! New Gilly gear! Look how cool it is! Playing the beta on Twitch right now! Unless you're late, then never mind that! Look how this game looks! Look, it's so cool! I love you, Giovanni! Please play Strive with me, it looks so cool. Okay, that's my video over. Please go watch me play Strive. I'll be making videos about this when it comes out instead of Dragon Ball. Okay, thanks, bye!